All along the front, the action was hotter and heavier today. The sounds of war overwhelming the faint chances of peace.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight, America at war. Reporting from Saudi Arabia, Tom Brokaw with Jane Pauley in New York.
Good evening. As the diplomatic efforts to end this war in the Persian Gulf went into slow motion tonight, the pace of the ground action picked up. One American was killed by enemy fire, but the real losses were on the Iraqi side in troops and in equipment. As for Saddam Hussein's answer to that Soviet peace plan, well, Baghdad Radio was saying only tonight that the Iraqi foreign minister will return to Moscow soon. Along the front, the overture to a ground war could be heard. American and British gunners were working side by side today, shelling Iraqi positions inside Kuwait, probing for strengths and weaknesses. At the same time, Allied planes papered the area with leaflets, warning the Iraqis to surrender or else. Late in the afternoon, the Americans sent an armored patrol into Iraqi territory, looking for mines and other obstacles. They didn't find any, but when they spotted what appeared to be an observation post, they opened fire, destroying the target. Saddam Hussein's Republican Guards just north of Kuwait were pounded from the air by tactical fighters tonight, and again, no Iraqi planes were launched to defend them. Simultaneously, helicopters swarmed all over Iraqi positions in southern Kuwait tonight. The attack went on for more than an hour, and it involved more than 400 helicopters, most of them American. In the same area, earlier today, U.S. attack helicopters destroyed more than a dozen Iraqi bunkers and forced out hundreds of EPWs, enemy prisoners of war.
They called in the Apaches, they started shooting it up, and it sounds to me like the occupiers of those bunkers, after 13 to 15 were destroyed, decided that they had had enough of this game, and they started waving white flags, white socks, whatever.
However, American troops riding in 2 Bradley vehicles like these and a Vulcan anti-aircraft gun came under Iraqi fire, and an American was killed.
A U.S. company from a U.S. task force engaged enemy forces consisting of infantry, tanks, and artillery along the border. During the engagement, U.S. forces suffered 1 KIA and 7 WIAs.
At the same time, teams of U.S. Marines were engaged in another kind of war. They moved right up to the northern Saudi border and began blasting rock music and messages in Arabic to Iraqi positions. The message, "You've suffered enough. Give up." The Allied commander here, General Norman Schwarzkopf, caused a bit of a stir today by telling the Los Angeles Times he believes that the Iraqi army is on the verge of collapse and that it was overrated in the first place. NBC's Fred Francis is at the Pentagon tonight with a report on how the Allies hope to speed up the process.
Tom, the grand strategy to defeat Saddam on the ground may involve tens of thousands of American troops and tanks invading a large portion of southern Iraq.
General Schwarzkopf in his interview said Saddam's army may be on the ropes, but others say you can't count on that, and every U.S. military move must focus on Iraq's past record of tenacity.
He lost 10,000 men on a battlefield and went right on the next day to win, just forgetting about the 10,000 he lost. It didn't cause him to pause at all. So we measure him, we think about him in U.S. terms, Western terms, but it's difficult to say that it's absolutely defeated until it's over.
The key to defeating Iraq is to destroy his tank army, which is literally buried just north of Kuwait's border. To do that, defense sources say, U.S. forces must avoid attacking through northern Kuwait into Saddam's strength, where huge losses could occur. And while American tank units might try to swing to the west and around the Republican Guards, which is called an envelopment, some sources say a grander strategy is possible, sending U.S. tank divisions deep into Iraq in what is called a turning movement, forcing Saddam's tanks to come north to meet them.
All the divisions are north of Kuwait just now, and if they...
Republican Guard
divisions. And if they come out of the bunkered positions, it makes them more vulnerable. So it might be a decision I'd want to think long and hard about.
U.S. ground attack aircraft would turn the desert into a killing field if Iraqi tanks came out of their positions to fight north. If they stay in those positions, precision bombing from F-111s will go on destroying the tanks at a rate of about 100 a day. It's a win-win strategy, say Pentagon sources, for 500,000 American troops who are awaiting orders in the desert.
Some commanders said publicly today that the GIs could wait indefinitely, but privately others say that no army can stay poised in the desert for very long.